How you start your cut after your bulk is what actually is going to decide if you get to keep the muscle or not. So it's really important to get it right, because if you don't, you'll either never lose the fat or you'll just end up losing muscle and it's going to look like you never even bulked in the first place. So in this video, I'll be going through everything I do to initiate my cut and to carry it out most efficiently so that I retain the maximum muscle that I've built during my bulk. So let's get started. The first one is going to be always easing into the calorie deficit. Do not enter a calorie deficit immediately. You have to stick to your maintenance calorie level for the first 1 or 2 weeks, because that basically gives your body a dietary rest. During this week, you should basically learn how to track your calories more meticulously, because it's going to become more important now. Because in your bulk, you didn't have a real cap to your calorie level. You could just eat more and burn more off in the gym. But now, because you have a calorie limit, you need to get back into tracking your calories more meticulously. And during this 1 week or 2 weeks of eating at maintenance, that is exactly what you should get used to and learn. So in the first week, just keep having your maintenance calories or the amount of calories that you were having at the end of your bulk. Don't change anything at all. Next, always reduce your calories slowly. This is where maximum people mess up. You get too excited to lose all the fat and reveal all the muscle. That's why you go down a very big deficit, and guess what happens? You do end up losing fat, but you also lose a lot of the muscle that you've gained. That is not what you want. You need to learn that the bigger your deficit is, the more muscle you're going to end up losing. You don't want to look malnourished at the end of your bulk. In fact, this was probably one of the biggest mistakes I did after my first bulk, that when I started my cut, I was just way too excited to get lean. And because in the initial phase of your cut, it's also much easier to reduce your calories because you've already been overeating for a very long time. So you should always reduce your calories slowly. So how many calories should you reduce anyways? What do you mean by reduce your calories slowly? So what I personally do is that I reduce 10% of the calories that I'm currently having. So for example, if I'm having 3500 calories, in the first week of my cut, I'll be having 10% lesser calories than 3500. That means I'll be slashing off 10% of 3500. That's 350 calories. That means I will be having 3500 minus 350. It's 3150 calories. That's how many calories I'll be having during the first week of my cut. Now, how to reduce your calories further? Because of course, you know that you're never going to be lean enough by having the same amount of calories. So I usually like to reduce my calories again further by 10% once my weekly average weight stops reducing. Once my weight stops reducing, that's when I know that my body has reached a plateau, and that is when I will slash another 10%. That means when I stop losing weight, I'll be having 10% lesser calories than 3150. That means I'll be having 315 lesser calories or 300 lesser calories. This is how you're supposed to reduce your calories. I find this method to be very perfect and a real good general rule for most of the population, because slashing off 10% calories from your current maintenance calories is not as big of a difference that it will cause a significant strength drop, but it's enough to get the scale moving. And this is exactly the beauty of this. Because your strength isn't dropping at the gym, that means you have surety that you're retaining the muscle. But because the scale is going down, you know that your fat is burning, which is why the scale is going down. So follow this method and retain all your muscle. The third thing to keep in mind now is that protein becomes more important. In your bulk, you could technically get away with having lesser protein because you're having more calories and more carbohydrates. And carbs are generally protein sparing. That means if you're having more carbs, the amount of protein that you're having during your bulk can actually be used in building muscle and not as energy, because there are enough carbs in your body to give you energy. But now that you're capping your calories, that means you're going to have to reduce the amount of carbohydrates you're eating. This means that there's not going to be enough carbs in your body to give your body enough energy. In that case, what your body is going to do is that it's going to take energy from amino acids in your body that could have rather been used in building muscle. So you need to have more protein during your cut in order to support muscle mass and recover faster. Now, how much protein to have during your cut? Personally, I just like to have 1 gram per pound of body weight. Some people may say that 1 gram per pound is unnecessarily high. Some people may say you should have more, but I think 1 gram per pound is just perfect, and it's a sweet round figure to calculate your daily protein intake. It's not that difficult to have that much, and plus I really don't see any significant differences by pushing my protein much higher than that as well. So 1 gram per pound, no questions asked. The next thing to talk about is carbohydrate timing. This is by far the most underrated factors discussed during cutting. If you're not having carbs immediately after your workout, you're significantly reducing your muscle recovery capability because your body needs to refill its glycogen reserves that it has lost during your workout. Insulin in your body is already high, and you know that the main function of insulin is to shuttle nutrients into your muscles. So when you have carbohydrates immediately during your workout, the carbs are actually used in refilling your glycogen reserves and not just as energy, and they're not just stored as fat. This is also when you can actually satisfy your sweet tooth or sweet craving if you have one, because the carbohydrate that you will get from your favorite sweet will actually be used at doing something productive, that is refilling up your glycogen reserves, and not just be stored as fat or burned off as excess energy. So time your carbohydrates smartly before or after workout, preferably immediately after your workout. Next, it's going to be lift like you're still bulking. Still focus on progressively overloading on every movement. Still focus on pushing your muscle to failure. Still focus on training heavy, and still focus on doing all your exercises appropriately. You don't have to reduce the weight and increase the reps just to tone your muscles. That's bullshit. Keep your training exactly the same. Exactly the same. And lastly, it's gonna be watch the scale, but keep your focus on the mirror and on your strength in the gym. So you'll see that in the first few weeks, your weight is going to drop rapidly because you cut down your calories and carbohydrates. But most of this weight that you lose in the first couple of weeks is mostly going to be water weight, because carbohydrates retain water in the body. And when you have lesser carbs, your body retains lesser water. After this, a general rule of thumb is that you need to make sure you're not losing more than 1% of your current body weight per week. If you're around 20% or 16 or 17% body fat, then make sure you're not dropping any more than 1% of body weight per week, because that means you're going into a bigger and deeper deficit and you're at a higher risk of losing more muscle. Also, make sure that your strength in the gym is not dropping too significantly. Like if you're suddenly dropping about 5 or 6 reps, that is a huge sign that you're going into a much deeper deficit than you need, and you need to bump up your calories and carbs. So by saying that watch the scale but keep your focus on the mirror and on your strength in the gym, I basically mean that track your weight loss. It should be about 1% of your body weight, but at the same time keep your main focus on the strength losses at the gym. There shouldn't be any major strength losses. It is absolutely possible to retain all your strength but only lose fat during your cut. Whoever tells you that, oh, it's fine to lose some strength during your cut, no, it's not fine. If you're doing your cut right, you should retain maximum of your strength, if not even gain a little strength on your cut. And of course, you need to keep looking into the mirror. You need to keep a track if you're losing fat around your body, in the shoulders, in the neck, in the arms, and you need to also make sure that your muscle size is constant, because if you realize that you've been dropping your muscle size, that can also be a sign that you're going into a deeper deficit. So keep your focus on the mirror and on the strength in the gym, but also keep a track of your weight. Now, if you want to learn how to lose fat effectively by learning what type of foods to have, how to track your calories accurately, how to really dial in your macros according to your specific body's needs, then I've actually made a complete detailed fat loss guide. It's an 11-step guide. It teaches you everything you need to know about fat loss. The link for this guide will be the first link in the description box below. It costs lesser than what you spend at McDonald's in a day. I would love it if you spend on your health instead. That was it for this video. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and tell me what my next video topic should be, and I'll see you in the next one.